As we all know, Japan is a country where polite, modest, and hardworking people live. This is because in Japan, parents teach their children from a young age to respect other people's boundaries. As a result, people there are not inclined to be free in their choices, disturb strangers on the street, or start conversations. Because of this, Japan often encounters lonely and depressed individuals who have never even held hands with someone of the opposite sex. But a person is not a robot. Everyone has feelings and emotions that need to be channeled in the right directions from time to time, because they can accumulate and eventually explode. This can lead to anything from minor crimes like theft to the deaths of innocent people. Today's story is a testament to this, but unfortunately it went so far and ended so tragically that Japan still remembers this case. If you're interested, welcome to my channel where I talk about real crimes and phenomena from around the world. If you like such stories, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Japan, one of the safest and most developed countries in the world, is known for its numerous cities, global companies, and popular modern culture, especially anime. One of these beautiful cities is Aomori, which is also a central part of Japan and crucial part of the country's economy. In this city, on September 28, 1982, a boy named Tomohiro Katō was born and grew up in a suburban home with his younger brother Yuji. Tomohiro's parents were of average means and did not stand out in society. Both of Tomohiro's parents were top managers at a financial institution, so they wanted their son to surpass them and raise him with the expectation that he would provide for them in the future. In elementary school, Tomohiro was an excellent student. Teachers often spoke well of him to his parents, and outside of academics, he loved running and joined the track and field team, soon becoming one of the best athletes at his school. Due to his success in elementary school, Tomohiro had no problems getting into Tsukuda Middle School, where he became the president of the tennis club. However, after entering the school, Tomohiro began to have problems. He started behaving aggressively at home and became irritable, and his academic performance suffered, dropping to 300. Because of this change, Tomohiro had a poor relationship with his parents and rarely returned home after school. As I mentioned earlier, his parents expected great success from both sons, so their pressure was high. They demanded that Tomohiro and Yuji excel in their studies and often intervened in their homework, insisting they redo assignments to impress their teachers. There were times when Tomohiro's mother forced him to eat food off the floor because he received a poor grade. And sometimes they punish him by making him stand outside for hours in the freezing snow during winter. However, this did not affect his school success. Tomohiro continued to receive poor grades, and when he graduated, he filed the entrance exams to the prestigious Hokkaido University. As a result, he pursued a degree in automotive mechanics at Nakanihon Automotive College. With his diploma from this college, he was hired as a temporary worker at an auto parts factory in Shizuoka Prefecture. But in Japan, being a regular worker is an ungrateful job, with salaries barely sufficient for a good life. Therefore, with his salary, Tomohiro could afford only a small capsule room, which are common in Japan, and some basic expenses for food. Although this was not a good life, he didn't want to live with his parents and moved out after finding a job, and eventually the company provided him with a room. However, over time, his expenses exceeded his income and his savings began to deplete, leading Tomohiro into a crisis. Meanwhile, his parents were not particularly concerned because they had not spoken to him since he moved out, considering him non-existent. By 2006, Tomohiro reached his peak of disappointment, as he was in such an apathetic state from the thought that his parents had likely disowned him, that he attempted to end his life by crashing his car into a wall. But he failed. After sustaining a mild concussion and minor injuries, he survived. Soon after, his life began to improve. At the end of summer, a company called Kanta Motor Industry contacted the agency where Tomohiro worked and offered him a job. A few weeks after the accident, Tomohiro started working in Suzono with a more comfortable salary of 200,000 yen per month. Although he was admittedly very withdrawn and uncommunicative, his work skills were good. He was always punctual, performed all tasks accurately and without problems, and thanks to this, his work contract was extended for another 12 months after a year of work. At work, Tomohiro was quiet, and outside of work, he was even quieter. Essentially, he had no friends. All his communication with the world was limited to an online forum where he could express everything he felt anonymously. His main entertainment at home was watching anime and drawing. He loved to draw, spending hours at it until he produced some kind of picture. This was his life for 2 years until that fateful month in June 2008, which made Tomohiro's life much worse. That month, news emerged that the Katō Motor Industry automotive company was planning to cut its workforce by 4 times. Tomohiro Katō was terrified, although no specific news about him had been announced yet. He couldn't shake this paranoid thought because if the company decided to lay him off, he would likely lose his apartment, which he rented through the company. On June 5th, Tomohiro started a regular work day, came to work and noticed that his locker was open and its contents were gone, including the uniform he wore at work. At that moment, Tomohiro remembered the workforce reduction and assumed he had already been fired and someone had taken his uniform. He slammed his locker door shut and accused his colleagues of hiding his work clothes. His colleagues went to clarify the situation with the boss, but when they returned, Tomohiro was already gone. Some time passed, first one day, and people thought he would came to his senses and return. Then 2 days passed and people began searching, calling his phone, sending texts, and his boss wanted to make sure he was okay, but there was no response. During this time, Tomohiro was on his forum, writing, "If I had a girlfriend, I wouldn't have quit my job. I would never be dependent on my mobile phone. Anyone with hope can't understand how I feel. I have no friends, and there will be none in the future. I will be ignored because I'm ugly. I'm lower than garbage because at least garbage is recycled." On June 6, Tomohiro went to a store that sold self-defense weapons and bought 6 knives, a dagger, and a baton. The next morning, on June 7th, he headed to Tokyo's Akihabara shopping district. Akihabara, located in Tokyo, is an interesting place for anime fans. Everything is sold here, making it a shopping zone where you can find electronics, computer equipment, and anime goods like books and manga. This is where anime and manga fans known as otaku gather. Although Tomohiro Katō was also a fan of this culture, he didn't come here for entertainment, but quite the opposite. In Akihabara, he sold all his computers, laptops, everything he had, and rented a 2-ton truck and Isuzu Elf, which he later used for his selfish, desperate purpose. On June 8th at 12:13 p.m., Tomohiro drove to the intersection of Kanda Myojin-dori and Chudori, ignored the red light and drove his 2-ton truck through the crowd, hitting 5 people. It was the last day of the week, Sunday, meaning Chudori was closed to vehicle traffic, making it a pedestrian zone. Nearby people quickly began providing first aid to the injured, thinking it was an accident, but that wasn't the case. Tomohiro jumped out of his truck and started stabbing random people with his dagger, injuring 12 people until the police arrived. When officers arrived, Tomohiro suddenly turned and tried to escape, leading to a chase down a narrow alley 170 meters from his truck, where police cornered him and aimed their guns at him. At that moment, Tomohiro dropped his knife out of fear and the police apprehended him. He was immediately handcuffed and placed in a police car. Meanwhile, at least 17 ambulances rushed to the crime scene due to the high number of victims. Given that it was Japan, bystanders tried to provide first aid to the injured, but unfortunately many could not be helped and died at the scene. Initially, the media reported that only 2 people had died, but by the end of the day, the number had risen to 7, with half dying from the truck impact and the other half from the stab wounds. The police and hospital staff found that 6 of the victims were men, and 1 was a woman who managed to call the police through an emergency call. Later that day, the public created an impromptu memorial in honor of the victims. During this time, the police took Tomohiro to the Tokyo District Prosecutor's office, where he was immediately arrested and interrogated by investigators. They wanted to know why he did it and his motive. Tomohiro responded that he was angry at society for having no friends and being dependent on the internet. He also added that his parents were partly to blame, saying their upbringing, pressure, and indifference were catalysts in the death of 7 people. Before the attack, Tomohiro deleted all contacts and messages from his phone, saying it was to avoid disturbing others. He also mentioned that he posted a message on the forum specifically for the police before the attack, which read, "At 6:10, is the road I'm planning to drive on closed? After all, everything is getting in my way. At 6:31, I have to leave on time. At 7:12, I got on the train early. At 7:24, I have 30 minutes left. At 7:30, it's heavy rain, although I prepared everything perfectly. At 9:41, even if the scale is small, it will rain. I hope everything goes well. At 9:48, I entered Kanagawa and took a break. At 10:53, I wonder if I will arrive on time. At 11:45, isn't it pedestrian hour today? At 12:10, it's time." This incident shocked all of Japan and made the headlines worldwide. The Japanese government promised to review knife laws, and the pedestrian zone that was only closed on Sundays remained open until security measures were recessed. In 2011, this road was reopened for pedestrians. Many industries in Japan also saw changes. Major developers like Konami Group Corporation postponed the release dates of their games, and some entertainment companies altered product names related to daggers to swords, or removed the word altogether out of respect for the victims. After this incident, Tomohiro's parents apologized to the victims in a television interview, but they became the main targets of press scrutiny. They were inundated with public discussions and hateful remarks. In 2010, Tomohiro's father resigned from his job, unable to withstand the hatred from colleagues, and continued living in their home in Aomori. Tomohiro's mother was hospitalized due to mental health issues. Meanwhile, Tomohiro's 28-year-old brother committed suicide, unable to live with the scars and shame from the massacre. Later, a representative from Konami Group Corporation stated that there were no hints of Tomohiro's dismissal and that he was considered a valuable employee. They even tried to contact him to check on his well-being after he disappeared from the workplace, but there was no response. It was only afterward that they learned about the incident from the news. On March 24, 2011, Tomohiro Katō was found fully responsible for the attack by the Tokyo District Court and sentenced to death. Tomohiro tried to appeal, but the Tokyo High Court upheld the death sentence. Tomohiro expressed remorse, saying, "I want to apologize to those who died, the injured, and their families. I acknowledge my guilt, although I don't remember parts of the incident." Tomohiro's death sentence was finalized, and he was held on death row until his execution at the Tokyo Detention Center on the morning of July 26, 2022. So, you live your life, study, work, overcome difficulties, look for a family, mind your own business, and then some psychopath, unable to handle his problems, kills you. The main takeaway is that such cases teach us to value life, loved ones, and to be a bit kinder to our children, because life, which may seem very long, can end at any moment, regardless of whether you are at fault. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm really interested in reading them. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel. Goodbye, everyone.